All right, well, welcome
All right, cool.
to the Sean Trey Show. I am lucky to have a really
Thank
cool
you so
guest
much.
today. Yeah. Now, can you introduce yourself and tell some of the viewers who you are and what you do?
Of course. So my name is Valentin Dubois. I'm a parkour athlete from France, and yeah, that's what I do mostly. I do parkour, so I jump on walls, I climb on stuff. Sometimes I do competition, like word chase tag, where you have to touch the butt of another person, or
That's awesome.
I do speed run competition, where you have to go across an obstacle course as fast as possible. I've been also involved in 2016, 17, and 18 with Ninja Warrior in France, where I won first place. And
That's awesome.
also I was in Team Europe, in Team France. Also, we had a championship in Germany. So I was doing that, but I'm not doing those anymore. I'm really involved in a speed running aspect of things. So
Yeah.
trying to go as fast as possible, basically. A bit like track and field, but more freestyle, we could say.
That's awesome. Well, I loved the Ninja Warrior, show growing up, and I'm talking about the old Japanese one, like when I was
Sasuke.
it's a Sasuke, man. Yeah, that was the old one, and there was that fisherman guy. That was like, yeah, he was the guy, and he just trained for Sasuke on his boat every year, which was awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, but the sport has become a long way, and you just said, I had before we started the call, I'd said I really enjoy watching your Instagram.
Thank you so much.
You
Thanks
do
a lot. That's really nice. That's really nice.
You do stuff that I was like, dude, I wish I could do that. You know what I mean? I would hurt myself. But you were saying that you were saying that, like, for you it didn't come easy. It was a lot of hard work.
Yep.
Yeah. How did you get into parkour? Let's start back at the beginning.
For sure. I mean, so how did I start to get into it? I think everyone has been doing parkour forever. It's a very human thing to do, to just climb on stuff. If you have kids, or if you see a baby anywhere, or any kids, you leave kids in a restaurant or in any park, they will start to climb trees, climb on the table, climb on the bench, stuff like that. Unless they're very well behaved and very well educated, they won't do that. But it's something very natural, such as this fighting. Even animals, when you see animals, they, if you have a cat, it's gonna move around the space. That's how you that's a way to have a relationship, a very natural way to have a relationship with the space where you're living. With your environment, to be honest. And then parkour as we know it, like people specifically training to overcome obstacle, that's pretty new. It's new and not. That's something that the army has always been doing, and it's new in the terms of doing it as a hobby. Hobby, that's pretty new. But how did I got into it? So I had the chance to grow up in an island next to Madagascar. So France, so I'm from France, and France has a lot of colony everywhere. Although I'm not from this island, I'm from a French and Moroccan background. My mom is from Morocco, that's why I'm a bit brown, I have curly hair. But we moved to this island, which is in the Indian Ocean, when I was about 6 years old. And basically it's always sunny, people are always outside, you live almost, not all the time, but you spend a lot of time barefoot. So I've always kind of been climbing stuff, fooling around. And then I saw the movie Yamakasi. I was really young. I was like maybe 10 years old. So it's a French movie which depicts the story of these guys that are actually training parkour. So they are training to be good at overcoming obstacles and climbing on stuff. And first I didn't think much of it when I was a kid. And then growing up as a teenager, I saw that people were doing it, that there was a real a way to train for it, and there was a real value and ideas behind it. What I mean by that is that the people who started to box parkour, what I mean by box is that, as I said, parkour has always been there from an evolutionary standpoint, and from the army and from firefighter. They have to climb building to save some people sometimes, so it's a form of parkour. But the people who have really trained and invented technique for parkour, for overcoming obstacle in the city or in nature, those guys were the Yamakasi from the French suburb. And they basically, although they were training for it, they also had this whole kind of spiritual value behind it, because they are people from the suburb, pretty poor, and it was a way for them to kind of express themselves, to feel free, even though they were surrounded by walls, and they were surrounded also by, you know, social entry. Like, it's really hard when you're a kid from the suburb, when you're black or Asian or whatever, to get out of this poverty and to expand and to go to other places. Although France is a more and more inclusive place, it was a bit hard in the 80s and the 90s, you know, if you wanted to rent an apartment and your name was Mohamed, it was a bit tough. Now it's a bit better, but still. But I think it was really a way for these guys that were all like brown, black, Asian and stuff like that to be able to, you know, to just feel free and to look for what it meant to be strong. There was this whole purpose of, you know, what it means to be strong or to feel strong. There's a very interesting quote from, that's not from this movie, but that's in the movie Into the Wild. I don't know if you've seen it. And basically,
my friend was in that movie.
Really?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, my friend is the German party guy. Let's get hot dogs.
Yes, and he gets naked.
That's my friend Tour. Yeah.
Oh, he's awesome.
Yeah,
but
awesome.
Basically he talks about the, you know, he fights with the waves, and he talks about the importance of feeling strong, not necessarily to be strong. And you know, I think they developed this practice with this idea of feeling free.
I love that idea because, like, you know, any of these extreme sports, I grew up surfing, and you know, when you're in the water, there's something that other types of sports don't necessarily have, in my opinion, that extreme sports do, because they make you more present. When I play volleyball or basketball, I have fun, but it's not as much as, like, you know, you really have to focus, you know, as when I'm surfing, you know, because if I'm not paying attention, that wave will kick my ass, you know.
Of course.
You get slammed around, and so that's really interesting. But it's also really interesting that you bring up. I love going to the zoo with my daughter, and there was this really, you know, I live in Vietnam. That's where I'm at, actually, which is also a former colony. And
that's why you have such a big time difference.
Yeah, that's exactly why. And so we go to the zoo, and they have this really, the zoo was designed by the French a long time ago. It was this beautiful old structures, but the monkey house, it's this huge thing, and watching the animals move, the fluid nature of how they just bounce, and like, there's not movement that is wasted. Everything is just moves into another movement, which moves into another movement. And when I watched that, I was like, when did we lose it? You know what I mean? When did people lose that ability to just be present with their bodies, you know? And that's one of the things I think is special about parkour.
No, you're bringing a very interesting point, but that's something that people are definitely, you know, questioning in the past decade. I think this whole question of the position of the body as a human. There is a whole, like, because basically we went, as the Second World War ended, more and more towards a society, especially in modern, very rich country, more and more, less and less oriented towards the body. Like, the work that you do is less and less oriented toward producing something with your body force, more with your brain power, offering a service or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. And so the body got, you know, put on the side, and the mental and the brain has been put forward, but we've seen the detriment of that is that we have a lot of obesity, we have a lot of heart disease, we have cancer, a lot of even brain disease like Alzheimer can be somehow cured with some physical drills, like learning to juggle, stuff like that, you know. So we've seen that definitely you're a brain, and you're a being of mental energy, but definitely you are also in a body, and if you don't take care of this body, it's gonna die, and there's gonna be a lot of problem behind it. And that's why we see this whole trend since the 80s with the fitness industry, and then the CrossFit industry came over, and then other people kind of had a broader message with, like, Ido Portal. I don't know if you're familiar with this guy. It's a guy from Israel. His name is Ido Portal. He basically studied this whole, like, a very different movement, right? So capoeira, gymnastic, yoga, and he built a whole system around it. He built a whole system that he calls the movement culture. It's basically, he's teaching people various drills, but like handstand, ring work, for strength, some juggling exercise, some parkour, and he mixes it all up. And he talks about movement. He talks about his ideas that most people should become generalists to some extent, learn a bit of everything, because that's how humans rose on top of the food chain, right? By being able to mimic a little bit of every animal. We can swim, but we're not as fast as fish. We can climb, but not as good as maybe feline or monkeys. So there's a bit of everything that we can do. So, but coming back to that, is that when did we lose it? I think it really arrived during the 70s, 80s. But on the other hand, we are also, it's funny because we are also moving certain part of the population better than ever, right? If you're talking about the gymnasts, what the gymnasts are doing now, the circus guy. So yeah, it's a contrast. Some people are definitely losing it a lot. Some people are moving incredibly well.
Yeah.
But it's good to be in tune with it.
There's a great point that like even something as simple as the 10,000 steps a day. We're not talking great fitness, but even if you get 10,000 steps a day, your chances of dying from something just go way down, from heart disease and all of these, stroke. And the idea is we are not meant to sit on our butts all day in an office or a cubicle. And it's what I've always loved about parkour. It's kind of funny because like, when I was a kid, I remember my friend Rith, and this was before parkour had come along, and I'm much older than you. I take care of myself. I eat healthy, so I'm 42. So I try to hopefully don't look it, but I eat all vegetarian.
No, you're great.
Yeah. I don't smoke. I eat really healthy, and I'm constantly exercising and staying in shape. But I remember when I was a kid, my friend Rith would always be like, I want to do, there was a bunch of skateboarders in my school. My friend was like, I'm going to do the same tricks you do, except just without a board. And they were like, whatever, man. And then parkour came along and he was like, joke's on you. But the idea is like, he was just having fun. And like you said, we've always been doing it. You know what I mean? It was natural to him. Like what he felt he was, he's just like, yeah. And he would just run around and do parkour-like moves. And it was way before it kind of hit the mainstream. But it was really interesting that like you said, it's always been there. And throughout history, you look back at some of the cultures, people were much more, like when people had to fight to stay alive, people were knights and stuff. People were much more like, into their physical bodies,
Well, of course.
Now, parkour, when it's before it was kind of like more of a specialty sport, but now it's really becoming widespread, right?
What do you mean by specialty?
Maybe 10 years ago, there were not as many people, but now there are parkour leagues. Yeah. Now you have like true contests, and it's like even with like the Ninja Warrior type courses, you can find those in lots of different cities around the world now. Yep. Go ahead.
It definitely exploded during the early 2000 when the first movie about it started to appear, like Yamakasi. Then you had, I know the French movies. There's District 13, Yamakasi. Yeah. Then in James Bond, I think James Bond played a big part of it because in the first scene of Casino Royale, there's a villain called Sébastien Foucan, who's now our coach of our team, the Blacklist team.
That's awesome.
And there's an amazing chase scene where James Bond is running after Sébastien during this chasing in Madagascar.
Oh, that's right.
And he jumps from a crane and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's right. There was also another movie that it was an American movie where, what was that? Was it a Die Hard? No. Give me a second. It was a Bruce Willis movie. Yeah, I believe it was one of the Die Hards. And it was the Die Hard where it was Justin Long was in it too, and Bruce Willis was trying to pick up this kid, and one of the main villains was also this parkour guy. And just
I think it's Cyril Raffaelli.
Is it Die Hard? No. Yeah,
it might be.
It's one of the Die Hards. I think it's like Die Hard, and Maggie Q was in it, Bruce Willis, Timothy Olyphant, and Justin Long. And the main villain was this parkour athlete that was pretty awesome. But
yeah, going back on the topic, so basically the first big movie came in early 2010s, and then people started to just doing it, like, okay, let's go outside, let's just jump on stuff. It's what people, as you said, your friend was saying, I'm just going to do skateboard without skateboarding. Myself, I was doing skateboard before doing parkour. I did parkour skateboard from 7, 8 years old to 15 years old, and then I picked up parkour. I was 16. Now I'm 30 in 3 days, I think. So it's been a while now.
Well, happy birthday.
I train. Thank you. But basically, yeah, so we had the first movies, we had the first show. MTV did a big TV show in 2010, the first competition, and Red Bull was a big part of making the sport as big. Although I hate Red Bull, it did play its part as promoting the sport onto the mainstream, Then we had stuff like Ninja Warrior, although Ninja Warrior is mostly oriented towards climbers. It's mostly endurance, arm strength kind of exercise. It still reminds a lot of parkour. Yeah, it's a lot in the arms, a lot less in the legs, and parkour it's a lot less of a leg-oriented sport. Like it looks a bit more like gymnastic or track and field, like sprint, triple jump, stuff like that. And people just like it, and kids really like it. I think that's also where the market is right now, is that many people are making money with parkour by teaching kids. Most of the class are kids. Adults are still a bit scared, although we see more and more adult coming. It's hard to to brave your fear of looking a bit ridiculous at the beginning, and of course you're not gonna be as good as the people who started when they were 12 years old or something like that. But there is a progression that people can understand and can work towards. But yeah, so people just like it generally. They think it's really cool. It's very visualized. It's a very how can I say that? It's something that's you see someone doing parkour and you're already amazed. You see someone doing a backflip against a wall in the street, you're like, what the hell was that? What just happened? You see someone climbing on top of a wall and then jumping 4 meters up the air into another wall, and then he runs around. It's like, what? It's such a pure expression of freedom that people are attracted to it, So and it's also a fun sport. There is a lot of way to make it entertaining. Right now, World Chase Tag, the game of tag, the same game that people were doing as kids.
Like one of the most fun things I've ever seen, man.
Well, it's good.
It looks crazy fun. Like there's this course that's built. It's kind of like in a square shape of a square, right?
Yeah, 12 meter by 12 meter.
And so the goal is to hit someone on the backside,
Yeah, I mean, you can touch them on the back, on the front, on the butt, on the feet, on the hair, You can touch them wherever you want. Basically, the rules are a bit simple. So it's a 12 meter by 12 meter quad. Okay. There is a bunch of bars, a wooden platform and stuff like that. And the idea is that there are 2 teams of 6 people, usually 5 to 6 people in each team. And we play a game of rock, paper, scissors to decide who goes first. Then one person from team A is trying to catch someone from team B, right? If the person from team A can catch the other person in less than 20 seconds, then they become the one to be attacked by another person from team B. And if the person from team B is able to escape, they score a point for their team. So you score points not by touching people, but by not being touched for 20 seconds. So it's it's like a fight. it's like a fight because there is this aspect of being in a cage and you're against another person. That's something that was really missing in parkour, and all your movements are very genuine, and nothing is really much planned. I mean, there is a tactic and there is some route that you're going to practice, but everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. So maybe you're thinking like, oh, I'm gonna go this way, and the person is cutting you, so now you need to find another way, and you're starting to do movement that came out genuinely out of you and are just it's a beautiful expression of human movement, I think.
Well, and I think go ahead.
I was saying it's a very it's a very, again, coming back to this primitive idea of human human movement. That's what kids do. That's what it's like a fight. If you see two little kitty, they're gonna bite each other, they run after one another. So it's very life.
It is an
embodiment of life
for sure. And I feel like on a primitive level, like on a human animal level, one of the most important things is the fight or flight, and animals love to practice play running away and to play catching things. Like that's what animals do, whether it's a puppy or baby cats or anything, baby humans. We love to play those games. I mean, and I think that it's just so like you said, the market for the education part of this is huge. We've seen even in Vietnam they have like parkour gyms starting to creep up. It's not a lot of them, but they've got like 2 or 3 places that people can go. Cool. It's really cool, and man, I think it'd be pretty awesome for like a parkour athlete to come here. They've got so many cool old like colonial buildings. It's pretty awesome.
I would love to come. Maybe one day.
You should come one day. I can help you set up some film people to shoot it, man.
All right.
That'd be awesome. But that's one of the things I want to talk to you about, because this is my podcast is often a lot of people that are in music and film. But one of the important things, and there's an interesting thing that I've always thought is really special about 2 sports, skateboarding and parkour. Because for skateboarding and parkour, like, there's a real filmmaking aspect to what these guys are doing. You know what I mean? Like, skateboarders, there's always one kid who's skating, but there's also the kid who's really good at riding the skateboard and has the camera. And I've noticed that as well with parkour, especially there's someone that's sometimes running after the guy that's doing the main parkour stunts. And it's how do you guys shoot that stuff, man? How do you shoot those action scenes?
So some people are definitely have specialized into being filmmaker for parkour and action scene in general. I'm thinking about Daniel Ilabaka, who's one of the pioneer of parkour, who's an incredible parkour athlete, and now he's more into the filmmaking side of things. He created his crew called Stunt Camera Crew, and they were doing this amazing thing. They were mixing gimbals and rollerblade. So that's how they are basically capturing different stuff. There is a lot of variety of tools you can use, especially nowadays with the ease of accessibility to technology like drones. And gimbals, GoPros. GoPros now are at another level of non-shakiness and quality of image.
It's amazing. What do you normally use to document your own parkour stuff? What do you use?
Me right now, I have a lot less of artistic. It's funny because I'm a graduate student from Les Beaux-Arts de Lyon. Les Beaux-Arts, it's a fine art, and I studied contemporary art for about 4 years of my life. That to become very rigid about my practice now. Now it's mostly about performance. Now my goal is to win the world championship of speedrunning and world chase tag. So everything is mostly about filming what I do in order to analyze the movement and to make it better. I don't really care about how it looks. That's why I'm not so much followed on social media. I don't pay too much. I don't put too much time into that because my goal is just to go fast. I just want to go fast. Maybe later when I'm done with competing, I'll be more inclined to working with a more artistic views. But me, I just use my phone now.
That's awesome.
Or my GoPro most of the times.
The tools don't have to be complicated, The tools can be simple. The tools can be straightforward, which is really awesome. Now, how the free running, the high speed running competition. What did you just call it?
It's parkour. It's called speed. There is freestyle running. And speed. Basically, those are the two main competition setups.
And speed, and then speed. Are you still working inside of a course?
Yeah, basically you have a course set up for the occasion. The course changes every time. Sometimes it's long, sometimes it's a bit shorter. Usually we're talking about the 20-second run. So for 20 seconds you're at max effort. And so it's mostly at events. So for example, there's a sports festival called the International Sports Festival, or sometimes it's spontaneous parkour organization that do it. And they just build a setup made of wood and steel bars, and they just go like, okay, this is the course, you have to go from this point, you have to go over there, sometimes you maybe have to come back, and then we time you, and the fastest will win the competition. That's how it works basically. It's very plain and simple. Cannot make it complicated, which makes the judging very easy because it's time based. Although in the freestyle is you also on a course, on a setup course. Okay, this is the course, you have this obstacle, and you need to do various technique, various movement for about 30 seconds to 1 minute. And it's very similar to what gymnastic is, except it's a lot less rigid in the coding. But the problem is that we're getting slowly towards that, because art is so hard to judge. Like, how do you judge art as a sports competition? And I'm sure they have the same problem in skateboarding or in surf. How do you differentiate two unique athletes that have a unique way of moving and are both doing incredible things? Like, okay, who's doing the best? Right. In our case, it's so difficult. Like, you have some people doing double backflip, from a rail, or triple full from there was a kid did a swing gainer precision on it. I mean, I'm talking nonsense here right now, but basically
I know I kind of know some of what they mean. I grew up around gymnastics, so
Okay.
Yeah, so
basically there's a kid that was at the last camp I was in Sofia. He was 17 years old. He won the comp and he was doing tricks that, how do you judge that? Like, it's so complicated. We've never seen that. So he swings from the bar, he does a layout backflip, land on a wooden platform that was a bit high and far from that. Then he comes back, he does a Kong gainer, so it's like a Kong vault, but he pops out into a gainer, and then he does a pimp full. I mean, he just never stops, so it's crazy. And it's so hard to judge. But that's the different comp.
It's like, and that's like something that I've often wondered about, like art competitions. You know what I mean? Any type of competition where there's an art involved, whether it be even music or stuff like that, or even like that's one thing for filmmakers every year. It's like, who wins the Oscar? It's like, come on, man, they're all good. You know what I mean? It's tough. It's tough, but I mean, it is interesting that there is a structure, and like you say, like in the beginning, people were just kind of doing what they were doing because it was new. And then slowly people start to get rigid. Now that's really interesting that you came from a fine art background. What got you into art in the beginning? Why did you?
My parents, I think I've always been a very sensitive person. I've always been very. I was crying a lot when I was watching movies as a kid. I've always been very in love with. I was in love with a different woman every year or every 6 months. I've always been very, very sensitive to. I was watching a beautiful sunset. I was like, oh, this is so pretty. Very, very. Just very overall sensitive to any kind of. Art, I think. And my parents also, my dad, my mom is she's not working art at all. She is working in the school industry. I mean, Éducation nationale in French. But she always had a sensibility and a taste for dance and for theater. And my dad was working in the theater industry, so he was making plays. So he was always building stuff for the decoration. The how do you call that in English?
Set design.
For the set design. So it was always a plastic kind of guy. And I grew up in this environment, and actually I was not really good at anything as I was in school, and I picked up art, and I was like, okay, if there after high school, you know, you have to choose a career, where you're gonna go, what you're gonna do. And I was like, okay, if I need to do something for a living, I might as well do something that has something to do with the creation of shape from up, from close or far, you know, like the idea of creating something. So I went to graphic design by default, because it seemed like the most accessible way of creating shapes and making money, like designing logos and stuff like that. And quickly, actually, it seemed as I was studying that my teacher oriented me towards fine art. So most, you know, not design. So we can differentiate two kind of plastic art, like design and just fine art, even though there is connection between, and one is not completely isolated from the other. But me, I was more towards fine art, which I would call philosophy with shapes. I think it's a way of understanding the world and making sense of your surrounding through shapes. And I loved it. And yeah, I just did that. But as I was studying, I actually still continued to do parkour as a hobby. And the more time passed and the more travel I did, the more people I met, and the more I progressed, I really thought, man, I think I love parkour a lot more than creating shapes, and it makes me feel very much alive. You know, as you talked about doing surf, the reason why you feel so alive when you're surfing or when you do skateboard rather than when you play volleyball is because, you know, you have a close relationship with death. And the relationship with death is making you alive, although there is not that many death in surf. I mean, I was also, as a kid, you know, growing up in Rainbow Island, I went to surf a lot. I was doing bodyboard mostly than surf. But yeah, sometimes there is some huge wave, and you go under a wave, then there's another one, it holds you down, and then you lose your board, and you're like, fuck, and then there is some corals next to you, you scratch you're bleeding, you're like, fuck, this shit. Right. So, and those relationship with and parkour, it's a bit similar. You know, you're on top. Sometimes you're on top of high stuff. This morning I was doing jumps at I don't know, maybe it was 3 meter high from a bar to a wall. Hey, it was scary. You know, it was pretty high. I was like, wow, if I fall, I'm gonna mess myself up. So, and I felt very much alive. You know, I felt very happy. I was like, wow, this is awesome.
Yeah.
So that's what really attracted me to parkour. I was like, wow, I love that a lot more, especially as a teenager when you're building ego and you're trying to define yourself and to find, you know, who you are and find confidence. Parkour is a great tool to build confidence, I think.
I think that you spot on, and like I like that being alive too, because like I still here in the US, we drive a car, and you got your radio on, you've got the air conditioner blowing, you've got, you know, music playing. It just, you're separate from that world around you. You know what I mean? You're going through the world, but you're in your little bubble, you know? Versus here in Vietnam, I love going on motorcycle rides. I rode my motorcycle out to the beach, and when you're driving a motorcycle, so cool. You feel the air. You've got the smells, you know, you're still in it, you know what I mean? And there's no air conditioner, it's the wind, you know. But if it's hot,
wind conditioner.
If it's hot, it's hot. If it rains, you're wet, you know what I mean? And you're very much aware. Like in a car, you don't look down and see the ground going by, you know what I mean? And now with like some of these smart cars, like in America, they've got these people that are just turning the autopilot onto their Tesla, and they just sit back.
Yeah, with the Tesla, yeah.
But like when you're riding a motorcycle and you look down and you see the ground flying by, and you know that if you go like this or something happens, you're on that ground. I love riding motorcycles because I feel so much more alive when I do that, and I feel so much more. You go for an 2-hour car ride. It's not that bad. You go for a 2-hour motorcycle ride.
No, you're dead.
You get off that bike and you're like, oh, you're just like, wow. It's like the wind, and you're holding yourself up. It's intense. You know, it's a different thing. And like the closeness with death is a powerful thing. And I think that you hit the nail on the head with that one. I think that we as humans have become too insulated. We've become too insulated. Go ahead.
No, I agree with you. I also believe that being too much close to death all the time is also a detriment. I think we've tried to build so much comfort after Second World War because it was awful. The people after the Second World War were all about like, we don't want to fight anymore. We don't want to have, we want to live with a lot of technology and protection and houses and a lot of food everywhere. We need food. We never want to miss food ever again because it's awful times. Although, when you're too much into the comfort and not much is making you feel alive, you can also feel depressed because there's nothing stimulating you, in your day-to-day life. There's nothing really challenging you. And this relationship to death to a certain extent, it's not like the idea is not, okay, let's just try to
do stupid stuff,
to do stupid stuff like running close to a train. A train is gonna pass and you're trying to run at it. Like, I think those are way too extreme, and I think to a certain extent, people who spend a lot of time hanging towards crane and stuff like that can be also pretty dumb because you can die pretty easily from that. Although we could say the same of parkour, but I do believe some of that controlled danger. For example, when you do parkour, sometimes you're at height. Yes, if you're, we did the parkour POV with the GoPro with my group Blacklist, where it was all on the roof of Paris. So we spent like a year on top of the roof of Paris to do this video. And it's sketchy, the roof are a bit slippery. It's super high. It's maybe 12-meter high, sometimes more than that. So you fall, you're dead. So we're really cautiously checking every part of the roof that we're climbing on to make sure it's gonna hold. This is where I'm gonna go. This is where I'm gonna jump. This is where I'm gonna land. Okay, is the landing good? So we check everything and then we go for it. Once we've make sure everything is safe, we do control. There is still go ahead.
No, but people, and I think that's something people forget too. People watch the videos of you guys doing that and they're like, whoa, these guys are just wild going out there. But I think that you guys put a lot of safety time in to making those videos, but people forget that. They're like,
but they forget, and we don't really. We also play that part of, wow, look at us, we're doing incredible thing. It's so reckless, and we want. If you want to create the attention, like if I make a hour-long video of, okay, guys, so today we're gonna check the. Actually, maybe it will make. Maybe people will be interested in that. Actually, actually, it's a good idea.
But maybe it is a good idea. But there's also a possibility that people be like, what the hell? I want to see people jumping. You know what I mean? So I do get what you're saying.
Exactly. When you watch a fight, you watch two people fighting. Yeah, they're almost killing each other. There's a lot of preparation to it, but you don't. Some of the most passionate about it will watch those hour-long documentary about how a fighter prepares itself for a fight. But most people, they just want to see people beat each other up. It's a bit the same with parkour. You just want to see a guy doing a front flip of a building, and this thing like, oh, is he gonna die? Is he gonna survive? That's although many parkour people are pretending like, no, we don't do it for the fear or for the attention. It's like bullshit, man. If you don't do it for the attention, why are you filming it? I hate this hypocrisy. It's like, no, I just do it for myself. Okay, that's why you make
put
videos,
up 5 videos a day.
Of you. Yeah, it's like, no, you do it for yourself. Yeah, sure, but you also do it for the recognition and the fame. Let's be honest.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting.
And potential money.
Exactly. So that's a good question. Is there a lot of money in parkour right now, or is
no,
is it mainly the views, or like the YouTube views?
No, the market towards parkour has one major problem, is that there's nothing to sell. I think this is the number one problem, is that you don't need any equipment, shoes, you don't really need any specific type of shoes, although there are some shoes that are better than others. Some people, they like Reebok, some people, they like Nike, but the Reebok, for example, I have Reebok. The Reebok I have, they are just classic Reebok. They're not made for parkour. Shorts, you can, any type of clothing can work. So there is very few market towards merchandising, so that's one problem. And actually it's the number one problem with parkour. So there is 3 main way to do parkour. So coaching is the safest and is the most I'm losing my English.
Widespread,
it's the most. Yeah, it's the mostly widespread way of making money because, as I said earlier, kids are very attracted to it. Yeah. Like when you go to a parkour gym, it's like 80% of the market is kids, like no bullshit, kids, and also selling like they sell sometimes some cookies and stuff like that to kids. So their kids are their number one market. So you have the coaching. Around the coaching, you have the business of opening a gym. So some people are also specialized into designing gyms, designing parks. Some cities are interested to build parkour park. That's a thing now. We have a few in France now. So we're actually the city of maybe Bordeaux, where I am right now, will ask, okay, we saw that we have this amount of money, we would like to build a parkour park. Hey, Robert or whatever, Jose, Jean, can you design it? Yeah, sure, I can do it. So you have this market around it. There is not that much money, but it's a fun way to make a living and a sustainable way to make a living, because you can coach forever, I would say. I think unless you're really bored of it or you're too tired, but you can coach, that's why you see this very old and fat weightlifting coach still coaching, or gymnastic coach, we all have this fat gymnastic coach, but he knows everything because he doesn't need to do it to explain to you how to do it. So there's coaching. The two others markets, the main one is artistic. So that's everything that's related to being an acrobat, working in the stunt industry, rocking as a sports model, like for different brands. For example, myself, I did some work with Oakley, with Huawei, with Decathlon. Some brands, they want a model, we have this idea of a photo shoot and we think parkour will fit very well. So they ask you to do a few flips, a few jumps. So this is the number two. This way of making money can be very lucrative. I have a friend who's a stuntman now. He actually is an official double for the X-Men movie. He worked on the X-Men movie for many years, and now he does like all the movies in the world. It seemed like he's on many Netflix shows, so he's like millionaire, awesome. I think, at this point. But it's like one in a million. There is no space for everyone in this industry. So some people make it, but very few people make it, and it's not a sustainable business because you cannot do that for a long time. Maybe you can do it for 5, 6, and up until you get injured. That's basically the main idea. And then the last potential market that's still growing is being an athlete. So being an athlete, you do competition, you win prize money, you're getting sponsored. But this market is very, very small at the moment, mainly because people are not too interested into parkour competitions. What people love, it's to see parkour on the internet. And that falls also into the category of video. I forgot of artists. It's the people who do YouTube. So some people do make money with YouTube, with the amount of views they're making. I'm thinking about Storor. I'm thinking about Charles Poujade also, who's a French videographer who's doing a lot of YouTube videos, thematically, very funny things like my angry mom is running after me because I'm late for school, or my dad is running, my crazy girlfriend is harassing me, so he's doing this POV with the GoPro where his girlfriend is running after him, so he's hiding from his girlfriend and jumps over a bridge and stuff like that.
Interesting.
So that's a good avenue for money making. And then there is the athletes, but this part is very small because the prize money are not very big. There's very few competitions, and also the market is not so big. I think in the near future, World Chase Tag is going to become the next big thing with parkour because people love it.
It's really, I think it too, because one of the things with World Chase Tag that's really interesting is that it plays upon nostalgia. It plays upon, everyone played tag as a child. Like, I don't care where in the world you're from. That is a game that everyone plays, You don't need, but I do also see the problems where you don't need a lot of merchandise, and if there's nothing to sell, like think about a basketball industry.
Yeah, you can buy the ball, you can buy the protection,
the shoes, or like that's a huge market is basketball shoes. You know what I mean? And then the basketball hoops for people who want to play outside their house. There's stuff to sell, but I have not heard of do they have specific parkour shoes? Are there
some people have been trying to design them, but it's always almost a failure. Most of the community are buying regular because the special parkour shoes tend to cost about 70 to 100 euros or dollars, and you can find like very good the shoes I'm wearing, the Reebok shoes. I buy them for 35 to 40 euros, so it's like almost twice less expensive. And the Parkour specialized shoes are not so great from what I have tried, but people try, they try to find a way to sell things. There is a two brand that I'm thinking about called Storor. So Storor is the number one parkour reference in the world. It's a group of English boys. They are doing clothing, but it's just a regular t-shirt, regular t-shirt with their logo. But since they're very famous, they sell a lot of them. People just want to have Storor stuff, just like people want to have maybe Miami Heat basketball shirt, or stuff like that.
It's the brand that they're buying.
It's the brand that they're buying. And also, Team Farang is also selling parkour clothing, which are just regular clothes, but they have actually a very unique design, and they also come up with very interesting designs. So it's it's fashion. It's a fashion brand that's inspired with parkour, but it's not special. You don't need that to do parkour. That's the thing.
You say you don't need it, but they're trying to build a brand. But no.
Yeah, they're trying to tell you that you need it, but you don't need it.
Right. Now, if you could go back in time and give advice to your younger self, what advice would you give yourself?
Oh, that's tough. I don't have any regret, to be honest with you. What would I give an advice to myself? I would. It's so tough because I didn't mess up. I think to get better. Okay. If I would have give myself an advice to be a better athlete, I would have tell myself to. Honestly, I did the best I could, I think.
It's awesome.
To play a bit less video game. I tend to have sometimes video game problems, but it's not that big of a detriment when I think about it, because when it's time to train, I do go train. But when it's so tough, because for example, I want to say invest more in social media. I would have told myself to invest more in social media, but every time I do invest more in social media, I'm depressed. I feel so sad, right? Because it feels like my value as a human, and maybe it's because I'm too first degree, or I'm too serious, because when I start to post on Instagram, I feel like it's such a vain, narcissistic pursuit. I have a hard time to differentiate myself from my social media self.
I totally understand, man.
It's like, it's cool. I post a sexy picture of me shirtless, or look at me. I did well at this comp. I won this competition. But at the end of the day, I'm like, I don't really care. And also, it doesn't make that much money. It seems like some people do make a lot of money with social media, but when I look at the path, it's just by selling stupid product. It's just, I don't know, I think I'm too hardcore. I have too much big values of, I think we're in a world where we don't need any items anymore. We don't need any more items. We don't need any more clothing. So what am I going to represent as an athlete? What athlete does, they try to sell you stuff, like t-shirt or shorts, or actually what I would love to is have be a supplement, a nutrition supplement sponsor. That's something I would definitely, I do believe that we need to help people get better health.
I agree.
And those are something that we could benefit from and that we need. But over that, I don't see myself selling any product. But to come back to the question, honestly, I did. But the problem is that when I was a kid, I didn't have much power. For example, I've been wanting to do gymnastics since I was very young, but the gymnastic facility was so far from our house in Rainian Island that I couldn't do it. And at the end of the day, yes, I did waste some times going into fine art because I was really serious about my study, but that also broadened my perspective on life and gave me some intellectual tool that I would have not discovered somewhere else. So I don't really have any regrets. Huh?
That's beautiful.
Ouais, for real, huh?
Yeah.
Maybe be more cautious to who I give my trust to. Yeah, that's one thing.
I think that's a good point too.
Ouais. Be more careful. I tend to trust very easy to people and be disappointed sometimes.
I just tend that one. No, what if you could have, like, you know, Aladdin's lamp? You rub the lamp. You have a wish. What would you wish for?
What would I wish for? Yeah, I would wish for something, not really for myself, to be honest, because I'm pretty happy. Yeah.
Nice.
I do not. I would want to win the World Speed Championship, but I don't want to win it because the genie gave me the.
Yeah, right. Not because of magic.
Right, it's cheating. I would wish for, I don't know, something. It's so tough. Wow, and it could be anything.
It can be anything, man.
Or something like make a better wealth distribution.
I like that. I'm off with that, man. I like that.
Yeah, we don't need Jeff Bezos going to the moon. I think we're good. Some people can use that money for something else, I think.
Yeah, man. I'm fully with you on that. Well, I really appreciate your time today. Do you have anything else that you'd like to chat about, man? About in relations to parkour or just
no? If you guys want to try parkour, I would definitely encourage anyone to give it a try. Like, you just go outside, look for your local parkour club. No matter your age, there was always like I met a obese woman in Colorado. She's like really fat, but she's training. You know, she's doing a few things on the bar. She's working on the bar, doing the few jumps, and she loves it. You know, she's having so much fun, and she's like maybe 40 past 40, 50 something, and definitely and if it's not parkour, find a movement tool that, you know, makes you feel a bit more happy and alive.
Right. I love that, man. I think that people have to. I think that it's scary to start moving when you've not been moving, but then once you do it, the world opens up to you. You know. Mm-hmm. So it's all here. So, well, I appreciate your time today, man. It was
no problem.
It was a pleasure to talk to you, brother.